go. Hello, welcome back, everybody. Today we're with Mike Welnicki. He is a partner of Weber and Grinnell Insurance, specializing in employee benefits more on the employer side. Mike, thanks for joining us, man. I appreciate it.
Oh, you're very welcome. No worries. I know how crazy of time it is for everybody out there, so I appreciate the time.
Mike is a specialist in regards to health insurance, disability insurance, group life, any group benefits out there on the employer side. Typically, we have a complementary business, right? So we at Streetlight Financial, we'll take on the employee benefits anywhere from like under 10 enrolled people in benefits, maybe even like a 20-person group we'll take on. Anything above that Mike typically handles for us, and the larger groups out there. He's dealing with the employers. He's dealing with HR departments on implementation and maintenance of employee benefits. So I appreciate your time. What I'll get into is not everybody is an employer that's potentially watching this video. So first, with the coronavirus, we're recording this on March 24th, and it's hit. Massachusetts is shut down. You're in the office because you're an essential business. I'm at home, even though I run an essential business, but you know, I'm still trying to be safe. There's my 2-year-old running there. He's coming in every video. So I'm from home. From an employee perspective, though, if you're an employee of one of these firms and you're looking at your disability insurance and you're worried about the coronavirus, what should you be looking at from a disability insurance perspective?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we've had conversations with really all the carriers, probably 20 different carriers in relation to this, as well as the Colonials and the Aflacs, the voluntary carriers. And a lot of them are very uniform across the board and really stating a disability for the purposes of their contract. There has to be the underlying medical condition. So if somebody has symptoms, those flu-like symptoms, their doctor is telling them, look, you need to stay home, you're experiencing a fever or a runny nose or a cough, a sore throat, these things that are consistent with flu or coronavirus, that is now going to be potentially applicable towards your short-term disability programs. One of the questions that we get a lot is somebody who just says, look, I'm afraid to go in the office. I have an autoimmune issue. I've had cancer or leukemia treatments in years past. If I get whatever's floating around, I'm in big trouble. So my doctor is telling me to stay home. You as the employer can certainly do that and work that out with your employer. But in terms of a disability benefit, it's really not something the carriers are going to consider a disabling condition, and therefore benefits in most cases will really not be paid out.
Wow. Okay. So underlying medical condition proven by, like, you gotta have a baby. Basically, a doctor's note is do your duty, right?
Yeah, a doctor's note, or obviously doctors are now not seeing as many patients, so telehealth, and a lot of times electronic medical records that telehealth providers will be sending that note could potentially to the employer, and so that's another way that employees are doing that as well.
Okay, so a side note here. Before I get to the next question, I got an email this morning from Guardian Insurance, right? One of the group carriers that we work with.
Yeah.
On the dental side, they're offering, all of a sudden, they're considering telehealth given a dental. How does a dentist see you remotely? Could you explain that one to me?
I mean, as much fun as this video is back and forth, how do you think a dentist feels having to look in somebody's mouth from a video? I mean, I have to imagine it's just, you know, a filling or something is coming loose. What do you think about this? Is this emergency surgery? But I don't know how they're going to be able to do dentistry over. That's weird to me. I don't get it.
It was an interesting email to get this morning. All right. So coronavirus. That's the disability side. As an employee on the health insurance side, we're getting some guidance regarding the testing of coronavirus. It won't hit your deductibles, and you won't have to like pay out of pocket for it potentially. But what about the care afterwards and all that stuff? How's that shaping up?
Yeah, it's a great question. So you started to see in Massachusetts the carriers start to really look at this, and then the first family's coronavirus bill came out and really addresses as well. And what the carriers are doing is treating the corona testing much like they would a preventative visit. So a wellness exam, an adult physical, so that co-pays will be waived, deductibles would be waived, co-insurance would be waived for those testings. And really where this is extremely important is anybody on a high deductible HSA compatible plan, where normally you'd pay that full cost of it as it goes towards that deductible. So whether it's $400 or $500, that would be your responsibility, but now that's being waived. And so that's going to be the responsibility of the carrier. in terms of a positive test and what that means if you wind up at an urgent care center or an ER or a hospital setting, it's not terribly defined right now. It does appear that that care afterwards, that aftercare for coronavirus or COVID-19 is going to be payable as if your health plan were just moving forward like a normal hospitalization or ER or urgent care center. So it's really important to know that not everything is going to be waived by this. It's really the initial testing. The aftercare is something that still looks like it's going to apply towards your normal medical schedule of benefits.
Right. Well, if that changes, maybe we could do a part 2 to this too, or something, because I'm sure there's some more guidance coming down the pipe, and who knows? I mean, we're just trying to piece this thing together right now in late to mid-March. So more to come for sure. All right, thank you for that. That is more of a people that know Mike. That is a value add right there. He doesn't deal with a lot of employee situations, you know. And I'm sure when he's asked, he's like, "Oh, get an employee again." But thank you. I know that's very valuable.
Sure.
All right, now to your bread and butter, the employer side. There are layoffs in groves. There's rehire provisions of benefits. If I'm trying to skirt the system as an employer, like what kind of liabilities reside in that, like kind of thing? Because it's tough for employers right now. What do they do?
It's tough, and so we've seen a mix, and that's obviously the last week and a half or so has been really designing. What do we do from a layoff, from a furlough standpoint? And so I think what we're finding right now is while there's still some unknown, a lot of the employers we're working with are either providing furloughs to where an employee is really still technically employed. They're not getting a salary from the employer, they're getting unemployment insurance, but they are able to stay on their benefits. So even though their hours drop from 40 hours down to really essentially no hours, there's a short-term fix on a furlough employee. In other words, employers are saying, we think you're coming back in 30 days. We think you're coming back in 45 days. So by furloughing that employee, we're able to continue our portion of the health insurance. You as the employee continue your portion of the health insurance or the dental insurance. And so benefits stay intact. The issue then becomes, what if we think it's more long-term? So they're doing long-term layoffs. So that employee is laid off, let's say as of April 15th, that employee is now laid off. All the benefits now turn to a COBRA. So your medical and your dental, that's something that we want to get COBRA letters and notifications out to those employees as well. So I think it really just depends on your business and whether you have a short-term fix or you see more of a long-term, this is going to go out 30, 60, 90 days from there.
What about assistance from the government, though? I mean, there's a lot of these coronavirus bills and stuff. Like, what do we know and what do we don't know? So let's start with what we know. What's out there now for employers?
Yeah, I think one of the things that's out there right now that isn't being talked about as much and probably should be is the work share program. Massachusetts is one of the states. I think there's 20 or 25 states and maybe more now that'll have a work share program. And essentially what this allows an employer to do is to not do a full layoff. And so if somebody's considering, look, we've got a 30% or 40% reduction in staff, and rather than laying off 10 people, they're saying, why don't we reduce most people's hours by 10% or by 20% to help us get down to that number? That way we keep the benefits intact. We're dropping their hours by, let's say, going from 40 hours down to 32 hours. And those additional 8 hours that they're losing, they can file the unemployment through the work share program and get a prorated portion of that back. So while they're not being made 100% whole, and they wouldn't be under unemployment insurance anyway, it allows the employers to not lay off, to really retain those key employees. I think it's also a good look, too, for those long-term employees. And now they also get to keep their benefits and apply for a smaller portion of unemployment.
What are we still looking for? What's gray? What are we still looking for the federal government or state?
Yeah, I mean, the government has tried to address it a little bit by the coronavirus bill that was signed into law by Trump on the 18th of March. And this is more or less, it's giving extensions of unemployment. It's going out an additional month on top of, shortening the elimination period of when people can file for unemployment benefits. But I think it really comes into play when you're talking about things like sick leave, an emergency federal extension of the FMLA, and dropping down from that over 50 that we all know FMLA has been, dropping it all the way down to really 1. So it's for really companies under 500 employees and extending out that leave protection, and also potential payments for somebody who, let's say, is staying home to care for a child whose school is closed or daycare is closed because of the COVID-19 scare. I think the biggest part about the bill that's out there now, the coronavirus bill, is the emergency sick pay, because this is going to affect all employers. And so all employers now are forced to, I don't really say forced, but they're really tasked with giving employees an additional 10 business days or 14 calendar days of sick pay. This is something that's going to be paid by the employer, and the employer, and that's very tricky for them, the employer is able to get that money back from immediate tax credits whether on the next payroll deduction, on the next weekly deduction, next quarterly deduction, however they do their normal taxes coming out. So it's going to be a nice way to be able to provide that 14-day protection for that employee before getting into any extended leave period.
All right. Well, there'll be definitely more to come out, I'm sure.
Yeah.
It's a crazy time. Communication is key. I know you've been blasting. You said you've been blasting emails out everywhere to all your clients. But somebody that is an employer or something and really has some questions for you, where can they find you?
Where can I find? I'm sorry.
Where can they find you? What your contact?
Hiding under my desk and in the fetal position. Really, that's I think that's where they can find me right now. Yeah, I mean, I'm in the office right now. I mean, my direct line here is 413-570-1975. I know you've got all my email contact as well. We can make a part of that. But at Weber and Grinnell, it's really important. I think there's so much information out there. What's right, what's not right, and there's still clarification. Just know that we talk about the coronavirus bill and the sick pay and the family paid leave. This is all going to start April 2nd. So there is a little bit of time for things to be clarified. So on, next Thursday when this all goes live and what you can do from there, I'm sure there'll be a few bits and pieces of information coming out, but certainly something you want to start really digging into right now.
Yeah. All right, Mike, thanks, man. I appreciate it. I know you're busy guy. Mike Welnicki, Weber Grinnell Insurance. Any employer out there, 20 or more people, ideally, those groups of 1,000 or more, go to Mike. He's the guy. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it.
Perfect. Thanks. You need a new helmet. Go Pats.